Every time you've gone out in the last probably 10 years and bought a concert ticket and you looked at that final checkout screen, you know, the one where the ticket is $50 and somehow the total is $137. And you thought to yourself, they know exactly what they're doing. Well, you were right. And now we have the Slack messages to prove it. So let's back up for a second because there are a couple stories happening simultaneously here and they connect in a way that should make you, well, pretty angry. Story one, the DOJ, the Trump DOJ, our favorite people, which at this point is less of a law enforcement agency and more of a concierge service for corporations that donated to the right people, hint, hint, settled its antitrust lawsuit against Live Nation this week. Okay. By the way, the DOJ lawyer hadn't even realized it had happened. Now, this was supposed to be the big one. When the Biden DOJ filed this suit back in 2024, they called for the breakup of Live Nation. Hey, separate Ticketmaster from the company entirely, end the monopoly, give artists and venues actual options. What did the Trump DOJ settle for? Live Nation has to share some of Ticketmaster's technology with competitors, divest 13 amphitheaters, cap fees at 15%, and pay up to $280 million, which is couch cushion money. For context, Live Nation generated over $22 billion in revenue in 2023. $280 million is a parking ticket. It's a rounding error. It's the kind of fine you pay when you want to make a problem go away without actually changing anything. The monopoly stays intact. Ticketmaster stays attached. Nothing structurally changes. Here's where story 2 comes in, and the timing of this could not be more perfect or more damning. While the DOJ was busy letting Live Nation off the hook at the federal level, the individual states are saying, hey, we still want to fight this lawsuit, and they were in court this week. And they submitted internal Live Nation Slack messages as evidence. These messages are from 2022. 2 Live Nation employees, Ben Baker, who oversees ticketing for Venue Nation Unit, and Jeff Weinhold, having a candid conversation about what they're doing to concert fans. Baker looks at some of the prices they're charging and calls them, quote, fucking outrageous. Weinhold responds that VIP parking has been raised to $250. Baker's reply, I almost feel bad taking advantage of them. And then later, and this is the one that lives rent-free in my head, Baker shares a screenshot of costs and writes, robbing them blind, baby, that's how we do. And I gouged them on the ancil prices to make up for it. That's ancillary fees, by the way. The fees, the ones we've all been paying and bitching about for years. Now, Live Nation put out a statement. They said this exchange, quote, one junior staffer that doesn't reflect their values, and their leadership only learned about it when the public did. Ben Baker oversees ticketing for the entire Venue Nation unit. This is not a junior staffer. This is someone with direct control. Okay? Here's what I actually want you to understand, because the individual employees are almost beyond the point. The individual states lawyers made the real argument that when they submitted these messages, they said this reflects Live Nation's monopoly power in a very specific way. Artists don't want to gouge their fans. Artists know their fans. Artists have relationships with their fans. If artists had real choices about which venues and ticketing companies to work with, they would choose ones that didn't do this. They would apply market pressure. Market pressure, but they don't have choices. Live Nation controls the venues. Live Nation controls the ticketing. Live Nation controls promotion. If you want to tour at scale in the United States of America, you have to deal with Live Nation on Live Nation's terms. And Live Nation knows that no matter how much they charge for parking, the artists aren't going anywhere because there's nowhere else to go. And that's what monopoly looks like in practice. Not some abstract economics concept. This. Slack messages. People openly joking about robbing you because they know they can. And the Trump DOJ looked at all of this. And remember, they had access to this evidence before anyone else did. This was their lawsuit. And decided that a $280 million fine and sharing some software was sufficient remedy. The states are still fighting. 39 states, the District of Columbia. If Live Nation doesn't settle with all of them, the case resumes next week. So here's where we are. Federal government tapped out. The states are the last line. And the evidence those states are putting in front of the judge this week is Live Nation's employees joking about robbing you blind. I don't know how this is going to end, but I know that the next time you're staring at the checkout screen, watching those fees stack, you're not paranoid. You're not imagining it. These are internal messages now in a court filing where they tell you exactly what they think of you. Jay, Live Nation's defense here is essentially, this junior employer said a bad thing, private message, blah, blah. But the state's argument is that these messages aren't just embarrassing, they're evidence of what monopoly power actually enables. The ability to degrade the fan experience without consequence because artists have no leverage to push back. Do you think that this argument is going to land with the judge? And more broadly, does any of this actually change anything for the average person buying concert tickets? Or is this just going to be another story we're angry about for a week and then forget when the next tour goes on sale?
Yes. So this reminds me of actually an interview. Like you mentioned, like artists actually want their fans to like come to venues and see them and all of that kind of stuff. So it reminds me of an interview that small little band, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, Nirvana did, specifically Kurt Cobain, when they're talking about back in the day ticket prices. Like this is not a new thing. And they're talking about like Madonna, I believe, charging between $50 to $75, and Kurt Cobain is just like completely shocked. He's like, "What the fuck?" And they're like, "Well, how much do you charge?" And I think he says like $17 or $18 a ticket, and he's like, "Who the hell is charging $50?" And they're kind of like complaining, I want to say like about Ticketmaster like back then. But go watch the video; it's on YouTube. I do think. Sorry, everyone. I do think this is something that like you're going to be mad about for a week and you're going to forget about it when like Donald Glover comes in town or whoever your favorite artist is. And yeah, it's just like we unfortunately have kind of said if you really, really, really want to go to a concert, like that's the price that you have to pay. So I do think we're all going to forget about it. Their defense, I will say, is like complete shit and crap. It does not matter, even if it's true, like, hey, we didn't know this happened. Like this person isn't representing the company. Companies like argue that all the time. Like, oh, I didn't know this was happening. I didn't know there was any wrongdoing. And yeah, they might get like a freaking house arrest for a few years or like a very light sentence, but depending on what the charge is, like with fraud or some shit, they're still going to get slapped with it. You can't just say, oh, I didn't know there was like sexual misconduct happening at my company. So sorry. Like you are responsible for creating a safe and happy work culture in your organization. So you can't just say like, oh, I did not know. That defense is not going to hold up in court. What that is trying to do is that's just a fucking PR thing where they're trying not to lose all of their fans and customer base, and they don't want people like boycotting Live Nation.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that this is not new. All the way back in 1994, Pearl Jam testified before Congress saying, don't do this. Okay, don't let like these consolidations happen. This is not new. And that's one of the things that I find most hilarious is how long we've been having this fight. That was 32 years ago. That Pearl Jam took Ticketmaster to Capitol Hill. I'm seeing a message in the chat. People just need to stop going to concert. Performers need to stop doing it. The problem is twofold. One, we've talked about this many, many times, right? And this came up again in my social media feed last week about companies behaving badly. Unfortunately, barring like, them funding war crimes, right? Like, people aren't going to. Boycotts very rarely work. And performers are screwed, right? Like there's only a couple of performers who have the clout to push back on this, like effectively, and they're not doing it. Okay. Because it's a battle they don't think they could win. This is why we have antitrust suits. Again, unsurprisingly, the Trump DOJ bowed out, right? Now you're down to individual states, and then it'll go to the Supreme Court. Like a lot of this stuff's gonna have to keep playing. I like that it's out in the open, right? That's a good thing, right? it needs to be out in the open. But asking people to never go to concerts and just not participate, that's a big ask, and B, it's impractical at this point. And quite frankly, this is what antitrust divisions are for. This is why we have regulatory bodies who are supposed to prevent monopolies. Is because, we want to be able to do these things in a fair way. I really legit think Live Nation needs to divest of Ticketmaster. The other one that'll get you, and I don't know if you know this, so what's shitty too is Ticketmaster owns the largest resale hubs, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say you buy a ticket and you're like, oh crap, I can't go, right? Because a funeral, whatever. So I'm going to put it on StubHub to sell it, right? Ticketmaster not only charges you the fees that you pay, but when you put it on StubHub, they tack on another set of fees for the person who's buying it for you. So they're getting their cash coming and going, right? And it is messed up, right? Because they're getting the fees. They're double stacking the fees, because you're not going to sell them for under what you bought them for at face value, right? So you're going to sell them for $150 with the fees, and then Ticketmaster's going to stack another 30% on top of it, right? Which is effed up. I really hope the states really take it to these guys, right? I like the fact that they're having to pay lawyers even, right? Like, I like the fact that, you know what? Make them keep burning cash on attorneys, right? I want Live Nation and Ticketmaster to take it through the nose. And I want them ultimately to break the company up. But I don't think we've had a successful antitrust case in this country since Microsoft. Can you?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I can't think of any. God, if only there was like some sort of like online database or like some sort of like website we could just.
I'm looking, and honestly, it keeps bringing up the Live Nation lawsuit, which is crap. When was the last time? It was AT&T.
How long ago was that?
1984. They did successfully initially win the order to break up Microsoft in 2000, but it was overturned on appeal. And I kind of want to address this in chat. People keep paying the fees, they get what they deserve. The problem is that if they're the only ones in the market, they're not getting what they deserve. They're getting what these people say they can get. And again, we're supposed to have laws against this specifically, right? Like, there are specific federal laws that are supposed to prevent this, because if there's only one guy in the market, that's the one guy in the market, right? And so, again, this is what our legal system is supposed to do, right? If I'm the only guy, if there was 4 people who sold widgets, right? And I went out and bought all 3 people that sold the widgets, but me, right? And I absorbed them into my company, and then I go, guess what? Now you're paying 20 times as much for widgets. That's an antitrust. Again, we have laws against this. It's illegal.
Well,
right?
To be fair, it's only antitrust if you didn't donate to Trump.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I forgot about that. I'll remember for next time. Yeah, and I'm sure if we go somewhere, there's dark money get put in there. There's a reason DOJ dropped this.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah,
it's only antitrust if it's in the sparkling region of Kentucky. Otherwise, it's just plain monopoly. Anyway, let us know what you think down in the comments below. Are you sick of this too? Do you think that the states have a chance to get Live Nation to do something. Let us know what you think down in the comments below.